First thing he said, sitting in the locker room, was like, man, I'm supposed to take my kids to the arcade in the morning. I'm not going to be able to he said it 4 different times, I'm not going to be able to take my kids to the arcade in the morning. Then we talked a little more. Man, I'm supposed to take my kids to the arcade. That's all he kept saying. And he was just in like this state of like delirium, like completely delirious. And I can only imagine what he felt. But he just kept saying, man, I'm supposed to take my kids to the arcade.
The Lakers played a role. Green described Bronny as a top recruit who played at a top college and emphasized that he should receive credit for his effort. Those comments sparked debate because they appeared to conflict with publicly available data. To evaluate the claim fairly, it is important to separate effort from results. There is no question that Bronny has worked on his game. However, professional basketball decisions are typically evaluated based on production, performance, and projection rather than effort alone. Looking at Bronny's NBA usage so far, his role has been limited. Across 2 seasons, he has appeared in a relatively small number of games, averaging under 7 minutes per game. His scoring averages remain low, and his shooting percentages are below league averages. These numbers do not reflect a player who has yet established himself as a rotational NBA contributor. At the college level, Bronny played at USC, which is a respected program, but his production there was also modest. Over 25 games, he averaged under 5 points per game in approximately 19 minutes. His role was primarily defensive and complementary, not that of a primary offensive option. From a draft perspective, he was selected 55th overall. That position historically represents long-shot prospects, developmental players, or organizational bets rather than players expected to contribute immediately. In draft rankings, he was not considered a top-tier prospect by consensus scouting services. Referring to him as a top recruit does not align with how that term is usually applied within NBA draft evaluation. This does not mean Bronny lacks potential. Late second-round picks are often drafted based on development pathways rather than current production. However, it does suggest that his selection was influenced by factors beyond on-court resumes alone. It is widely acknowledged across the league that LeBron James's presence played a role in the Lakers' decision. This is not unusual in professional sports, where organizations sometimes consider relational, business, and cultural factors alongside basketball evaluation. Acknowledging that reality does not diminish Bronny personally, nor does it imply doing wrong. The core issue with Draymond Green's comments is not that he defended Bronny, but that the framing blurred the distinction between effort, projection, and documented performance. Public records show that Bronny's statistical profile does not match that of players typically described as top recruits or draft-ready contributors. It is also—
What do I make of this art? Someone in the Buss family is very pissed off at Jeannie. Probably didn't agree with the sale, probably didn't have much control over it, and this is their way of getting back. That's what this reads to me. Trading Bron to the Clippers. I don't buy that either. You're not sending LeBron James right up the street to the Los Angeles Clippers. Maybe the Clippers called, I don't know. But you're not just sending LeBron James up the street to the Clippers. I don't buy that. Felt LeBron was not great for the Lakers drafted Bronny. Do you bow down and kiss the ring? Say thank you, you're appreciative. I've seen Bron speak out about how he's appreciative to the organization. But also, Bronny did do some work. Like, Bronny worked to become who he's become as well. It's not like this kid wasn't a top recruit and didn't play at a top college. Like, give Bronny some credit as well. He worked. Does LeBron being with the Lakers help Bronny get drafted there? Of course. But don't tell me the owner's son that's a general manager or something else don't help. When you're in great positions and you've put in work, it helps. That's just the reality. That's the world we live in. But I don't know. I don't live in the Lakers locker room.
Discussion. As fans and analysts, evaluating situations based on evidence rather than narrative helps keep the conversation grounded. Bronny's journey is still unfolding. The focus should remain on what he becomes, not on overstating what he has been so far. The comment section is open for thoughtful discussion.
A broader issue raised by this situation is how narratives are formed around young players who enter the league with high-profile connections. Bronny James is not the first player to be drafted under unusual circumstances, and he will not be the last. Throughout NBA history, family ties, legacy considerations, and organizational relationships have influenced decisions at the margins of drafts. This is not unique to the Lakers, nor is it inherently unethical. What makes this case different is the level of visibility. Bronny entered the league under unprecedented media attention for a late second-round pick. That attention creates pressure on both the player and the public discourse surrounding him. Statements made by prominent figures are amplified, scrutinized, and challenged more intensely than they would be for most players selected in similar draft positions. This is where precision in language becomes important. When a public figure describes a player as a top recruit or implies that the player's draft position was earned primarily through on-court performance, those claims invite comparison with established benchmarks. In NBA discussions, terms like top recruit, lottery-level talent, or draft-ready prospect carry specific meanings tied to scouting consensus, production, and projection. When those terms are applied loosely, confusion follows. Evaluating Bronny James strictly through that lens shows a clear mismatch between label and resume at this stage of his career. That does not reflect a judgment on his work ethic, character, or long-term potential. It reflects how professional basketball evaluation traditionally functions. NBA teams rely heavily on data, film, medical information, and role projection. For late second-round selections, upside often matters more than immediate output. However, upside is still grounded in identifiable traits: elite athleticism, standout defensive impact, shot creation, or exceptional playmaking. Bronny's current profile suggests a developmental guard with defensive instincts, not a polished prospect expected to contribute early. That reality aligns with how the Lakers have used him. Limited minutes, situational appearances, and a focus on development rather than production are consistent with a long-term project, not an NBA-ready rotation player. This is where much of the public disagreement arises. Some commentary frames Bronny's presence as proof of merit-based success, while others frame it as purely nepotism-driven. Both interpretations oversimplify the situation. The more accurate view sits in between. Bronny likely would not have been drafted without his connection to LeBron James. That is a reasonable conclusion based on historical draft patterns and current performance data. At the same time, being drafted does not guarantee success, nor does it prevent development. Many players drafted late or signed under unconventional circumstances have carved out legitimate careers through incremental growth. The problem emerges when commentary attempts to rewrite the evaluation process retroactively to justify the outcome. Doing so creates unrealistic expectations for the player and distorts how fans understand roster construction. Draymond Green's comments appear to fall into this category. By emphasizing Bronny's effort and framing his background as equivalent to that of higher-ranked prospects, the discussion shifts away from objective evaluation toward narrative protection. That shift may be well-intentioned, but it introduces inaccuracies that are easily challenged. Effort, while admirable, is not a differentiator at the NBA level. Nearly every player in the league works extensively on their game. What separates players is not effort alone, but the translation of that effort into measurable impact against elite competition. This distinction matters because overstating a young player's current standing can be counterproductive. When expectations exceed reality, patience wears thin more quickly. Players labeled as something they are not often face harsher criticism when their performance fails to match the narrative. A more balanced approach would acknowledge Bronny's unique situation honestly. He is a developmental player with time to grow, drafted in part due to circumstances beyond pure basketball evaluation. That does not disqualify him from success, it simply contextualizes where he is starting. This also raises questions about how former and current players participate in media spaces. Player-driven podcasts and platforms have added valuable perspectives to basketball discourse, But they also blur the line between analysis and advocacy. When players discuss peers or family members of peers, personal relationships can influence framing, intentionally or not. That does not invalidate those voices, but it does mean their statements should be examined with the same scrutiny applied to any other commentary. Another layer to this discussion is how criticism is received. Disagreeing with a public claim is not the same as attacking a player. Pointing out statistical context or draft history does not equate to hostility. Yet, in modern sports discourse, those distinctions are often lost. Bronny James occupies a difficult position because criticism of the situation around him is frequently interpreted as criticism of him personally. That dynamic discourages honest evaluation and creates polarized conversations where nuance disappears. For Bronny's development, nuance is essential. Young players benefit most from realistic expectations, defined roles, and time. Inflated narratives do not help that process, neither does dismissive criticism. The healthiest environment acknowledges current limitations while leaving room for growth. From an organizational standpoint, the Lakers' approach appears aligned with this understanding. They have not rushed Bronny into a prominent role. They have limited exposure, prioritized development, and avoided placing him in high-leverage situations prematurely. That suggests internal clarity, even if external commentary remains divided. This contrast between internal management and external narrative is not uncommon in the NBA. Teams often operate quietly while public debates grow louder. Over time, performance tends to settle those debates. As for Draymond Green's role in this conversation, the criticism centers on accuracy rather than intent. Defending young players is commendable. However, doing so by overstating credentials undermines credibility and distracts from more constructive points, such as patience, development, and the realities of late-round picks. Bronny's career will ultimately be defined by what happens on the court over the next several years, not by how his draft position was justified in the moment. If he improves, earns minutes, and contributes meaningfully, early debates will fade. If he does not, the focus will shift naturally to other prospects. What matters most now is allowing the process to unfold without forcing conclusions in either direction. This situation also highlights a broader media trend, the pressure to defend narratives instead of explaining systems. Basketball development is not linear, and draft outcomes are not always reflections of current ability. Honest discussion acknowledges that complexity rather than smoothing it over. In that sense, the most responsible framing is simple. Bronny James is a young, developmental player with unique circumstances. His draft position reflects both opportunity and uncertainty. Evaluating him fairly requires time, patience, and evidence, not labels. As the season continues, the focus should remain on progress rather than perception. Improvement in decision-making, defensive consistency, shot mechanics, and confidence will matter more than minutes or headlines. Debates around how he entered the league will eventually become irrelevant. What will remain is whether he builds a sustainable NBA skill set. That is the standard every player ultimately faces, regardless of name. Thoughtful discussion grounded in facts allows that process to be observed clearly.